All right, the regular meeting, the Moose Lake City Council for Wednesday, October 11th at 4 p.m. And the first item will be the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes, additions?
No.
None from the council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 2, consent agenda. 2A is the minutes. The special city council meeting September 12th. Regular city council meeting September 13th. Planning commission meeting July 12th, corrected. Do you have any discussion, comments, or motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion's approved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 2B financial reports. Number 1, the city accounts payable, September 2023. Number 2, the city financial statement, September 2023. And number 3, the liquor store profit loss statement, September 2023. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the financial reports?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving to number 3, public comment. This time reserved for comments from the public on matters not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments to 3 minutes. We don't have any comments tonight, so we'll move on to number 4. 4A, the police officer, Chad Pattison, he's not here, so the department report for September will be given by the city administrator.
Yes, so in your packet, you will see the police report for September totaling 243 calls for service. The breakdown would be 6 business patrols, 62 extra patrol, 70 traffic stops, and 12 community engagements. In addition, there's 2 assists to other agencies, 87 calls for service, and 4 medical calls totaling the 243. Interim Chief Pattison is on vacation. He is in Ireland, so he did write a message apologizing for not being able to attend. He did present a little bit of additional information regarding the decrease in self-initiated calls. And so with that, the PD has been a little bit short-staffed, and that is the reason that those calls have gone down. State Trooper Cody Pedersen has started as of September 12th, so he is helping relieve some of the uncovered shifts with part-time employment here through the city of Moose Lake, and I believe that's it.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. In the note that interim chief Addison left, you said Mills Hanson and Arun Mickey both applied for part-time work. Would it be appropriate if we're that many shifts that we're not filling to vote on that, or should we table that, or what's the recommendation?
I would think because we have yet to do all the negotiating, and that could take all the way to January 1st, I think we should approve the use of part-time officers until then. We don't know how long it will go. And if it goes quick and we don't need them, they're just part-time, we don't have to really worry about that. So I think it'd be appropriate to give them authority to utilize them when they can.
Yeah, we're already using part-time, it's just adding to the
Yeah.
roster.
Just gives them more options to help fill
Yeah.
the open.
In addition to utilizing officers from other agencies, they are, ready to go. They have training and, the cost of onboarding is significantly less, which I know in turn Chief Pattison has communicated through, email correspondence that's been shared as well. So, he is out for a little bit longer. He is reachable by email. I could, if council chooses to take action tonight, I could communicate with him and, upon his return, they can be onboarded.
I guess I'll make a motion that we approve the part-time hire of, is it Mills Hanson from Carlton County Sheriff's Office and Arun Edwards from the State Patrol for part-time work.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to 4B, the city superintendent, Phil Etner, department report for September 2023.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Owens, another busy month getting ready for winter. I know, Councilor Duso doesn't like to hear that every time I say that, but we are getting ready for winter, so I'm sorry, it is what it is. We'll start in the water department. The water department distributed 7.4 million gallons of drinking water in the month of September. Hydrant flushing is completed, and all hydrants are ready for the winter season. Our entire water system has been switched over to winter operations, which deals with a few adjustments for the water tower, some hydrant stuff, and just some odds and ends on our end. Everyone knows about the water main break on the 500 block of 4th Street, just coming over the bank. That's buttoned up. Concrete's getting poured tomorrow morning, blacktop will be Monday, hopefully, and then we'll be back open to full space. So, sewer department collected 10.6 million gallons wastewater month of September. We do have one discharge left with ponds this year that we'll be doing here in November. The sanitary sewer flow meter was calibrated on the 18th of last month, so that's good. That came in compliance. It was the range set points it was at when it was inspected were within the parameters that they like to see, so that's all good to go. Street department, pothole filling is always, patching is always. We're going to do that until we can, until the blacktop plant's closed down or until we close down, one or the other. So that's an ongoing battle, but we're trying to stay within our budget the best we can and moving on with our day there. Cemeteries, campgrounds, parks, that's all of it except for the campground has been winterized. We put the bed ready for winter. The campground will be done by the end of this week or beginning of next week. Other than that, the arena. So ice is currently going in at the arena. Paint went down yesterday. I had an opportunity to meet with the painting contractor we use. He actually pulled me aside and thanked me for the work that our crew is doing down there, because with the way the crew this year has set up that sheet of ice has been better than he's ever seen in the past. And he was very thankful and happy with the work that's being done down there. So kudos to our crew that's down there. I know they're working really hard. So hats off to them. That's all I have.
Just to piggyback on Superintendent Etner's dialogue about the arena, we do have an update to share regarding the repair. So at last month's city council meeting, the council approved a repair invoice of around $18,000 for the cooling system and a leak. So once the technician got up here and they did some troubleshooting, it turned out that the problem was a lot larger than they had originally anticipated. We were thrown a estimate then of about double, so $36,000. At that time, I reached out to the Hockey Association president, Amy, and she and I coordinated. The Hockey Association agreed to pay half of that invoice. So the city's cost did not exceed what was approved. The repair was made in time for ice to go on, and it was a good collaborative effort between the two.
That's great. Pass on a thank you to the crew at the arena.
I sure
Sounds
will do
like that
that.
went well.
Yep.
That's
that'll be
great.
good. Thank you.
And they'll be ready for the kids on the 15th or something?
17, I think.
17th?
Yep.
So, well, that's moving quick. Municipal liquor store. Before we start, should we have somebody try to call Matt to see what happened to him?
I did reach out and text him, so I'm just kind of waiting to see. I can always hold it to the
Phil's
end.
gonna-
I'll call.
Doors are locked up there now, so.
Okay, we'll have to come to this on the side. Thank you.
Municipal liquor store.
Members of the council, Mayor Shaw, Administrator Owens. Liquor store update. Well, I'm pleased to announce we are up through 3/4 of the year. The previous year, 62,691. So we're at 1.536 to 1.473 last year. So we're in good shape revenue-wise. Great job down there.
That's through September.
Through 3/4, through September, yeah.
And what was that figure again?
We are up 62,691.83. You're welcome. Big congratulations to Jim Preem. He's now worked here 30 years. We'll be meeting with him here soon. We have a plaque set up for him and some other things. So great job, Jim. We appreciate his loyalty. Brenda from the MMBA, she has a few dates for Marnie and I now. She just needs to pick one and come on down for some training, so we're looking forward to that. The ice machine keeps shutting off down at the liquor store, so we have AirServe come in to take a look at it, and I reiterated the warranty we have, so we'll see what happens. I don't know why it keeps shutting itself off, but they have to keep turning it back on to make ice. Also, the condenser is starting to freeze up again, so we have a call into region to come take a look at that. So, it's my liquor store update.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Jim.
Yeah,
And thank the liquor store.
Yeah, great
Good
job.
work.
Excellent.
Very impressive.
If council is looking for kind of an in-depth month-to-month summary of the liquor store revenues, they are available on page 43 of the packet.
Thank you. Moving on to 4D Technology, Library Department, IT monthly update.
sure, I'll start with the library. It was a short meeting, Walt was there. She would want you guys to know that the Friday movies are done now through the winter months. She's looking for extra December ideas as far as what to do in there. And her winter reading programs will be starting in December. So otherwise, business as usual in the library.
Any
I-
technology updates?
Oh, yeah. IT related, changing out some monitors in the DMV. They need an iPad for some new activities that they do. As far as language, they need to be able to service people who need a translation app to speak different languages and headphones, which we ordered already. Just some different things they need to do in there now.
Are those state mandated?
Yeah. A cost savings, we decided to cancel our True Digital subscription in the arena. So that was the function that showed like the weather for the next 7 days on some TVs and stuff in there. Those TVs no longer exist on the wall, so we just canceled the subscription. We started our cybersecurity phishing monitoring and also our dark web vulnerability monitoring with VC3. VC3 now for the project server, they have my spreadsheet of all of the programs from each department, so they were very thankful to get that, and that's still ongoing. And then I have, I know we've talked, it's been a little while, but I do have a camera server update. If you recall, we voted and did the patch job for now, knowing that maybe in the next fiscal year we would go to a cloud-based solution, and I just have a total here for you. It is 52, just a little bit over $52,000.
That's
Now,
to
this
go
does not
to-
include new cameras, so this is just for the cloud-based camera server, and it would be cloud-based. Now, this is not in the budget presentation that you'll see later, so whatever you see later, chalk on another $52,000 if you want something like this. Currently, I'll just remind everyone, the patch job we did now, it still makes us vulnerable to things, cyber attacks in the camera system, so. But that's the server or the cloud-based version. We could go the hardware-based version. I do not have a quote for that, but it might be more expensive because then we gotta buy all the hardware for it. And then I would say there's also a leasing subscription-based model we could do for this, where you're billed monthly. But I didn't know how you guys would feel about that, because that would mean that they still technically own all of this equipment, and they essentially would have access to whatever data and stuff. I mean, they would have to sign some confidentiality stuff, but I'll get to it.
He's going to.
Yeah, well, Brian, it probably would be a good idea to get that cost
Sure.
on a monthly basis, because when you're talking 52,000 for cloud-based
Yep.
and hardware maybe more,
And this is through DSC Communications, if I don't remember if I said that.
I think it'd be wise to get a monthly cost if you can.
The cons with that is you're locked in for a certain, 3-5 years, and they still own everything, so.
Still may be the only reasonable way for us to go forward.
Sure.
Pretty hard to come up with 50-some thousand for a server.
Yeah, this stuff's not cheap, and like I said, that's not including cameras, so
Yeah.
$2,500 a pop for a camera.
I think we're at a good point where, and I know that this was spoken about by Darren before he retired, about selecting 5 or 6 cameras. And the ones that are really needed in specific spots that the police think would give us the most information for our dollar,
Sure.
I guess, to put it that way. And it can be used multiple directions, and maybe that's all we need. Things are getting to such a high expense that maybe we don't need 20, 30 cameras. How many do we have?
30, I believe. That's not including the substations and the water and light cameras.
Right, so we may need specific ones on the buildings, and maybe at the real, what would you say, best spots for them to view.
Yep.
And then the rest, we may have to let go of. I know that in the past, every time they've used them for a crime, they keep saying it was so grainy we couldn't use it. But yet you have all these cameras, so what's the purpose? I guess the council should think about that too, I guess.
So as Ryan mentioned, this has not been included in the budget, the cost to repair. And of course, the budget is fluid from now till December. There's a lot of work that has to be done. So looking for, input and direction on prioritization, and possibly after we have our budget discussion later on, you may have a better idea of how you'd like to prioritize some of these items. But absolutely, if you have input, please weigh in.
We should probably ask the police department for those key cameras that would be useful, where those would be.
Yep.
And then present that to the council. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to 4E City Engineer, monthly update and pre-construction meeting.
Oh yeah, so in the packet, you'll see the meeting minutes from our October 4th monthly engineering meeting. A lot of these items we will cover later on or have already covered. I think a few points that I would like to highlight at this time would be that we do have an upcoming meeting between administration, our engineering group, and a potential developer for design and the establishment of a development agreement. So that's an exciting meeting coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We'll make sure we keep council informed as progress is made there. Of course, that would be relevant to the 30 acres that the city purchased for a housing development up behind Pine Tree. So you'll see that information in here, just a general dialogue about it. In addition, the city is going to be putting in a grant, an LRIP grant. As discussed in the last city council meeting, First Street has been selected, so in the background, the engineering group is working on drafting our application. Some activities that we'll be doing are, there'll be a resolution to be passed and or letters of support, things of that nature. So you'll see additional communications come out about that as well.
Anything?
Just the 2023 sewer line project, had a pre-con meeting a week and a half ago, something like that. Substantial completion is the 22nd of December, finals the 29th of December. Contractors aware of what they need to do as far as notifying residents, providing temporary facilities if need be during that period of time. Pretty cut and dry. This is already from a very basic process downtown, so that's all happening.
What date did you say?
The 22nd of December.
Through the 20,
So it's 22nd of December is substantial completion, and then final completion is the 29th of December.
So there'll be activities happening between now and then
Yep.
in the 7th and 8th Street district.
Yep, the very far northwest corner of town.
I was just concerned if that was over Christmas, if that would be.
We never talked about Christmas.
And
We did talk about Thanksgiving.
Maybe families coming in, then no facilities.
Yeah, we talked about holidays and the avoidance of such. We talked about avoiding Thanksgiving. The idea is to have the project completed prior to then. So with our substantial completion date being the end of December, the likelihood that we're still even dealing with the project then is very nil. But we did have discussions about other holidays that are relevant to earlier in the year here when they should be working on the project.
Substantial completion is 90% complete, which aligning will be done. The service outage will be over with by that point. It will be more restoration.
Okay.
Great question.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you. 4F, Chamber of Commerce updates.
Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce meeting today, they did announce their 2024 event date schedule, which I would encourage anybody who's interested to look on their website. The 4th of July parade is on a Thursday this year, with the holiday falling on a Thursday in 2024. Agate Days is July 13th and 14th immediately following, so we're going to have a super quick turnaround from one holiday to the next within the city and those functions that the city contributes to for those. In addition, they have all of their 2024 events listed. They are looking at some revisions to their membership tiers. All of that information is again online on their website. If anybody has any questions, they will be taking over Trunk or Treat this year. They're partnering with Essentia Health. So Essentia Health and the Chamber are going to launch Trunk or Treat in the park. And they're currently looking at some ideas for the Christmas Parade of Lights and a Santa event as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Moving on to 5 previously discussed business, we have none. Moving on to new business, 6A. SEH, City Engineer Matt is here. for the 2023 update of the Moose Lake WWTF capacity memo.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I'm only laughing because it's been I've had back-to-back meetings for 2 straight days, and I thought I timed this perfectly. I was in West Duluth at 3:30, and I said, I'll be there by 4:30 for the start of the meeting, and totally forgot you started at 4. So, I don't know, it's just been a week like that for me. So, anyway, I am here to talk about your annual update on your wastewater pond capacity, and it's kind of directly related to the lining projects that you've been doing. So, you'll recall from going back 4 years ago now, I believe, we started, the council made a decision to dedicate funds every year for a lining project. And that was in relation to the pond capacity at that time. You were running about 93% of your capacity of your ponds. A reminder, at 80%, the MPCA says you have to start planning for what you're gonna do, and at 90%, they start to critique any permits you would send through them. Not necessarily deny them, but they're gonna start asking a lot of questions. So Phil and others at that time said, yep, we need to start doing something, and so we started the lining project. So the good news this year is last year we had dropped it from 93 down to 90. Last year you had done a large project. We dropped it down to just over 86% this year. So what that means in terms of homes, an equivalent number of homes is you added about 54 homes of new capacity to your community. So that's a pretty big jump. It's about 20% jump in 1 year. So last year's project certainly was a good thing. That's about 12,500 gallons a day if you care to know that math. So a few things with this. So our first goal was to get under 90%. That's kind of, at least internally, we kind of wanted to get there. Just, it makes permitting easy as new things come in. So I was asked last week at our meeting with city staff here about moving forward. Alyssa had just mentioned that we're having a meeting coming up with the developer. So for that 30 acres of land that you purchased, right now the concept would put about 25 homes on that land. 25 homes is about 6,000 gallons a day. The reason I tell you that is we just went from 90 down to 86-ish. We got about 12,000 gallons to give out and get you back to 90. Now, 90 is not a magic number, it's just kind of our goal of where we like to be at if we could. Again, we think permitting is pretty easy from that standpoint to up to 90. So think of it this way, you have about 12,000 gallons to dedicate to new things. 6,000 gallons of it would be required for the housing development that you're hoping to get done. So I had told staff this already, I would highly recommend that you dedicate at least the first 6,000 to yourself, since you went out and purchased the property and wanted to do that. Then I would say if you wanted to just go right back to that exact 90%, you'd have about 6,000 or 6,500 gallons left that you could dedicate for other things. Now, I'm not in a position to tell you what that would go for, but obviously you've thought about campground expansion over the years. You've talked to your brewery a couple of times about expansion. You have a current request in from the sanitary sewer district for some gallons. So that would be, I guess, the things I'd recommend to start thinking about is how you want to, if you want to dedicate any gallons, I guess, first of all, that's up to you. But if you were to go to the 90, you're about 12,000 gallons, and how you want to divide that up. Again, 90 is not a magic number, you can go over it. It's just you get critiqued a little bit more. The higher it goes, the more critiquing you get. So, with that, I just wanted to see what questions you might have or other planning thoughts you have or anything I can help with.
Do we have any projection on this next lining project? What we could gain from it? Do we know how bad it is compared to the ones we've corrected already?
It's next on the list.
So it's
It's bad.
pretty bad.
Yep, it's bad. It's the closest It's the closest segment of pipe that we have to the lake, left, not to the line yet. So yeah, it's definitely a place we need to go.
And after this project, I know it's come up, all the manholes, how much the remaining manholes we have, how much infiltration we have. Which, I know you and Doug talked about that, and that's something we probably should look at a little closer before we go beyond this current one. But planning for the next area, and we're already in October, so we should be making some decisions and planning in the next 2 months if we want to look at anything in next year early. Because here we are in December doing a project that probably should have been done long ago, I guess.
Yeah, a couple other thoughts there, of course. Alyssa and I and others did a presentation to the Bond and Bill Committee a month or so ago that would include a very, very large citywide lighting project. Now, if we're lucky enough to get that, great. You'll see numbers improve very quickly. That being said, to your question, Mayor, last year's project was basically 3 projects in 1 year.
Right.
This year's project is a 1-year project, so I don't expect that we're going to see the jump
For another,
for next year like we just did right now, just because the project is smaller. Also, Phil very wisely started at all the pipes that were underwater, and we have now, after last year, got to just barely above water. So you're probably not going to see the same return necessarily moving forward. It's still going to improve, but maybe not as big a jumps. The other thing, just long-term thinking, you can line and make improvements, but at some point there's a little bit of a diminishing return there. And what I mean by that is you look at your pond capacity, both at the flow going into it and the concentration of it. In your concentration, you have a ton of capacity, but every time you reduce the flow into it, the concentration goes up and up and up, and eventually they would get to equal to each other, and then the lining really doesn't have any more improvements happening. We have a ways to go yet, but to your point, you're not going to be lining forever and keep reducing or keep increasing the pond capacity. Eventually, those things will even out, and then that's all the benefit you're going to get from lining. So, but that's years away, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
good stuff to know.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you
Yes.
did bring up the manhole covers, and you said that the piping was all underwater, and now Phil got it to just above water. Are there certain manholes that are still in that
There shouldn't be.
critical?
There shouldn't be, because the bottom of the manhole is the bottom of the flow line pipe. So we should be right there, and we're doing manholes as we're going. So I mean, everything that is underwater is getting, the manholes themselves are getting lined as well.
Is there an estimate that you put forth of manholes
Correct.
that equals so many houses if you did all the manholes, and that would be $400,000 to do all the manholes? So my question would be, would it make more sense for our next lining project than to be looking at doing manholes that are in really bad shape, or would it still be to do the lining project or like?
Well, I don't know that Phil and I can answer that right here tonight. We'd have to look at a couple of things, but the other comment I would have is Phil just mentioned what's worst is next on the list or what we're going to do, but the other thing is we still have a very large 15-inch clay pipe that is probably a pretty big contributor of I&I. It's clay. We have video of roots going through it, cracks in it, etc. So before I would jump to all of the manholes, and we've met with the DOC I think 3 or 4 times now on hopefully getting a partnership for that project. But I would probably look at that at the same time before I would jump to all of the manholes, because if we got a large diameter pipe with a lot of stuff going on in it. But great thinking, that's the way we should be thinking. What's the best bang for the buck here?
Also, if, let's say that grant dollars ever came in for the big project, we gotta match it, probably. And I'm guessing it would be 2 years out. Probably because the
Yeah,
way
you would
the
find
cycle-
out in May of next year
Yeah,
if you would get it, and it would be available to you like the fall. of next year, so it would be a 2025 project if you were.
At the earliest.
At the earliest, of course, you would be able to do it, I think, in 2026 as well.
Right. Okay. Any questions, council? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. 6B, MLAHA and IDS 97 Riverside Arena Skateboard Collaboration MOU discussion.
Yes.
Scoreboard. What did I
Yes.
say skateboard? Scoreboard. Thank you.
In the packet, you will find a quote for a new scoreboard and some examples of such. So what's been going on in the background is the city and the Hockey Association and the school district have been meeting. A lot of open dialogue regarding the cooling system at Riverside Arena, but also other items. There was a need for a new scoreboard. And so both the Hockey Association and the school district agreed to contribute equal parts to replace a scoreboard in Riverside Arena. How that looks from a financing standpoint, there's a lot of creativity that's going on here and just excellent collaboration. So the district cannot contribute to buildings that they don't own. And so what we're going to do is be modifying based on an MOU, if council approves, to increase their lease amount, their portion of the scoreboard. In return, the Hockey Association's lease amount would be decreased that same amount. And so it's a net for the city. We'll be receiving the same amount of lease revenue from the two entities. But what that does is it allows the district to contribute with the Hockey Association to purchase the scoreboard between the two entities. So what I'm looking for tonight is approval of essentially that concept. And so the district is going to have an MOU that gets approved at their next meeting as per Superintendent Steen's email that was in the packet. And so once that MOU gets approved, then I'll be bringing it forward to council. I just wanted everyone to be aware and I guess essentially on board with the idea.
So you're looking for a motion to move ahead with the collaboration.
Correct.
Does that mean the final, you're not asking because the MOU has to be accomplished yet, so next month you would do the final vote?
Correct.
So do we have a motion to move ahead with collaboration on an MOU discussion with the Hockey Association and the school district?
I'll make that motion.
Now, is that explained correctly?
It is. Because we're modifying the lease agreement, definitely need council approval.
Do we need a second, or do we have a second? Excuse me.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, so please move ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you. 6C, Riverside Arena Community Partnership Discussion.
Hello, very excited to introduce what essentially is a first draft and a potential community partnership with St. Luke's and also Asperis Health. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So essentially, the main points of this are they are offering up $150,000 for naming rights of the arena. That's essentially the meat and potatoes of it. There are some other things like they would like to utilize the arena a couple times per year. We need to maintain the arena as a functional hockey arena. We need to keep the appearance up, promote use of it all year round, things of that nature. We can take, the city can take the $150,000 in one lump sum, or they can be broken out $15,000 per year for 10 years. So yeah, we've been working hard with Chris Johnson. He's the VP of Strategy and Finance for St. Luke's. He's also the president of Northern Lake Surgery Center. And really not looking for a vote or anything like that today, just kind of, this is for your information, to give us some feedback. I suppose the next steps would be, we would go back to them if we have any revisions, and they could make some changes, and/or we would share this with the city attorneys. Yes,
Is it gonna have, is it gonna be a new name to it?
it would be a new name, yeah.
So it'll be the St. Luke's, whatever that.
Yep.
name.
Yep.
What would this funding be able to be used for?
Oh, great question. I have that on my notes. I forgot to say it. So essentially, the city can allocate those funds for whatever intents, purposes you want. So if we go down this, we've talked to our auditors, and we can give some recommendations of how we accept this money and then how we allocate it to where you want it to go. But as far as St. Luke's, it doesn't matter to them what we utilize the funds for.
Wouldn't we need some of the money to put their name on it if that's whatever they choose, like St. Luke's?
So in the contract, they're paying fully for their sign.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
And they've also offered to share costs for a new digital or video board on the front to replace the one we got.
Okay, are you looking for consensus to move ahead? Is that
Consensus to move ahead.
correct? Yep.
The contract did not identify the city having final say in what the signage looks like. I think that we should have that in the contract, that we have final say in what it looks like. And we should have final say on the size as well. Otherwise, yes.
Well, they would have to follow our sign ordinance.
Correct. Like everybody does, they would have to.
Yes.
Got consensus?
Perfect. Melissa, did I get it all?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Six D, City of Moose Lake fee schedule, public utilities, water reconnection fee discussion.
So we got contacted by Water and Light regarding kind of a discrepancy as far as when the public works crew goes out to shut someone's water off, whether, for whatever reason it is, whether it's non-payment or they need it shut off for the winter and they come back in the spring. I mentioned non-payment, obviously, as well. Regardless, that does take some time. So in the field, you have a water curb stop, which is typically placed at the property line, which is the valve we use to shut the dwelling off, right? Many things can happen to that curb stop. It's actually the reason we ended up just coming straight for the last 3 days is because of the curb stop. That's how it started. Over time, they can fail. There's a collar called the curb stop riser that allows us to chase away with a wrench to get down there to turn the valve on and off. They rot out over time. Half of Moose Lakes are rotten out already as it is. So we have to go and we have to remove debris that's fallen in that pipe with a piece of equipment. So as soon as that happens, we end up having 2 staff members, a pickup, and a piece of equipment out there for upwards of sometimes 2 hours. It costs money to turn someone's water off, whether it's just for luxury or it's because they're not paying the bill or they're going out of town or whatever have you, right? We were notified that we have 2 different rates. We have a rate of $200, we have a rate of $60. I don't really understand either one of them or how they, what's that? Yes, correct. I'd just like to make it one flat rate. And we're bringing that here tonight for you guys to think about that and see what you want to do.
Now, is that rate because Water and Light has one and we have the other?
No, how it was.
So they hasn't been coordinated? Excuse me.
No, excuse me, so how it was established on the fee schedule is one was a reconnection fee and then a reconnection fee if requested. And so there's some other dynamics that come into play here, and that would have to do with a landlord scenario or things of that nature when the request isn't necessarily being made by the user. So there was other dynamics that came to question with how this fee schedule was structured. We've never had dialogue about this before. It's the first time that it's come forward. I asked Superintendent Etner to come up with you know, his recommendation. There are a lot of times, once we had had open dialogue about it, where it costs the city way more than the fee we're charging in order to accomplish the task. So between the two of us, we discussed that one fee, whether it's requested or not, or, you know, how that process is generated needs to be streamlined for our workings with Water and Light as well. But the $200 charge and one fee, no matter if it's requested and or if it's a shut-off generated by Water and Light, it would be the same amount.
What do you mean generated by Water and Light?
So for non-payment,
For what?
non-payment.
I got you.
So they can, a utility user can request that it be shut off, a landlord can request that it be shut off, or a user can, and or Water and Light has the ability to shut off utilities as well.
And what would be the cost if they call and say we'd like it turned on again?
I would recommend $200.
So 200 to shut it off when, let's say, people are traveling. $200 when they leave and $200 when they get back.
Correct. That's what I would recommend. Because it does take time out of the day, and if we have to get equipment out there to open that whole back up again to do that work, it takes time and money and resources.
If we open somebody up, are we doing making I shouldn't say habit, but a recommendation we put on the new shut off?
Say that one more time, Ted.
You know, the new pipe that goes up so you can access it again?
Yep. Are we replacing?
So we
those
wouldn't
stops?
have to dig them up when
Nope.
we shut it off and dig it up when we turn it back on?
Sure, so what we're doing with that equipment is just literally vacuuming out the dirt, debris, and rocks out of the collar so we can get the wrench on to shut them off. We're not digging anything.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay.
So I mean, even just to turn a valve on and off, it takes some time. It takes labor hours and it takes equipment hours.
Yes, well,
What have we been charging?
That's a very good question.
nothing.
So the reason why Water and Light is asking us is because they facilitate.
The billing.
Correct. And so as staff has turned over in both offices, it was, can we get on the same page here? We're not sure what this process is. They were either charging $60 or $200, depending upon their discretion and interpretation of what was going on and our city's fee schedule. And then finally it was brought forward, let's ask. Great, let's all get on the same page. So it was either 60 or 200 that somebody was being charged previously.
Yes, Chris.
Is
Sorry.
this an amount that they have to pay up front, mostly to get the water turned back on? Or are they putting it on the bill? Because I can see issues with it being $200 and, you know, we go and turn the water back on and then they're not paying the bill, then we're gonna have to go back and shut it off because they want it shut off and they're still not paying their bill. And I mean, it's, I know exactly what you're talking about because I deal with that. So is this a pre-payment type situation? Should it be a pre-payment? They have to come to the city or Water and Light and pay before it's turned back on?
Sure, and this is why we're here. I'm fine with whatever you guys decide, as long as it's the same.
I would recommend that it be a pre.
What if it's on a Saturday night and they need that shut off or you're flooding your basement?
I would say emergency
That's
situation, a little different
different.
story. That's completely different.
So it's immediate on an
Yep.
emergency situation.
Yep.
And that's-
If you're leaving town for the winter and you want your water shut off, you know, that kind of thing, yeah.
Mhm.
Or non-payment.
Or non-payment, yep, absolutely. But if you call me tonight and your water meter blows apart and we have to shut you off, you know, we're not gonna sit there and be like, Dad, you're gonna have to pay first, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that'd be fair for any customer.
Or you do make a charge at that point. it's an emergency and there have to be repairs. Does that fit into the repair costs or?
Sure. And I know currently, right now, we're not getting reimbursed for calls. If it's not on our portion, which is another thing we should probably talk about. Well, we're not going to do tonight, so.
So we don't know what we've been charging up to this point, and I'm guessing probably the lowest number, 60, if we did. I don't remember ever anyone even asking,
Asking for,
stating what the cost was to shut it off.
So
I don't ever remember a bill or anyone saying anything about it.
I know the one we struggled with just down the road here Thursday, and that wasn't this situation, that was a situation as far as an emergency leak. We worked on that for 3 hours before we could get to it, to shut it off. There's 3 employees there, a pickup and a piece of equipment, and that cost a lot more than $60. I mean, that's gonna be over 200 by the time you add it all up. And that's just lost revenue for the water department, so.
So as right now, our ordinance, what does it say?
So right now, it's listed on the city's fee schedule. Water and Light facilitates the transaction. They are charging either $60 or $20, depending upon whether or not they are reconnecting based on request or non-request.
Did you say $20 or?
60 or 200?
60 or 200.
At bare minimum, we should be cleaning up the language so there is only one connection fee and reconnection fee.
Yeah, how
Or
could you
disconnection
decide
fee,
if
right.
you don't?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
that's where we should be. in my opinion. How often does this happen?
We have probably, I'd say 8 or 10 we shut off every winter. And turn back on in spring. when we come back.
Do they have water issues or we're just shutting off because it's a frost?
They go south. So there's no place they go south in the winter and they won't shut it off.
do we have an option that we can allow the person to put it on their payment over time? I know you said, Chris, you run into a problem with that.
Well, I guess I'm thinking more of the non-payment. And when they request, do we have a lot of those where they request that they have non-payment, that they shut the water off and then?
So we are very lucky because when services are pulled, electricity is pulled first. And when people can't charge their cell phones for 5 minutes, they get excited, right? You'd be amazed how much water is really looked past when it comes to that situation. So by the time we get out there to shut it off, they've already paid a payment and their call is back on. So then recent services are reinstated.
I just know that where I've run into problems is the fact that they, just expect their water to be turned back on, and I know that, they can assess, the cities can assess the water bills to the property taxes. But, I mean, it gets into, when they expect you to come out there and turn the water back on and they haven't made any effort to make a payment, and it just, and then you go turn it on and then they go the next month and you haven't paid any more, and it just snowballs, so.
And we don't
I
need a
would-
decision.
What?
We don't need a decision.
No, I'm just saying that my thought is the most important is to get at least the prepaid to get it turned back on, and shutting it off, I don't think you could just add it to the bill, because that's gonna have to be prepaid to get, And I think they require their bill be paid in full too, don't they?
That's a power and light question, I do not know.
I mean, they wouldn't turn the water on if they haven't paid the bill.
I wouldn't.
So, I mean,
I would hope they wouldn't generator work it up.
yeah,
Generator work
so
order do that.
I'm saying that they'd have to come up with their bill plus the $200 plus the $200 that they have to shut it off with, so.
Just a thought on this, we normally adjust all our fees in January. Just a suggestion that we, to me, set it at 60 at this time, and give the council time to think about this for January when we adjust all the fees for the year. To me, that would be a better time to make the final decision. And, it's just an option that I'm throwing out.
And I'm not against that option at all. But right now, we have two options to pick from, and which one do we pick?
And it may be the council comes up with another number, could be larger, could be smaller, could be in between 60 and 200, just give the council time to think about it, because a jump to 200 is a big jump.
I wonder how we come up with the number, you know, like for 200 or whatever. I'm wondering, you know, like what do other cities charge, you know, is there something else to look at to?
There is, yep, we could look at other cities, absolutely. I dug into one which was closer to the I think it's $75 range.
I can't remember what Barnum's is.
I could research all that.
It's in their online in their policy, but I know it's more than 60. I think it's more than $60.
You know, tonight we could set it at 75
Well,
until January.
I'm not saying it has to be
Yeah.
whatever. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but I do agree we should set a number tonight
So we have
so
some
that we don't run into this till January.
Because I will run into.
You will be shutting off some,
Correct.
in the winter, for the winter.
In the next month, probably, I'll be shutting it down after this.
And I can understand that.
Mhm.
I would just ask if there's consensus if the verbiage could be for a disconnect and reconnection fee with one amount only, then it would cover both ends of the transaction and just have one consistent line item.
You're saying that $200 it covers both the turn off and turn on?
I'm just saying that the verbiage of the motion, so that it reduces our fee schedule to one line item only, because right now we have a reconnection fee and then reconnection fee if requested. And so what we're looking to accomplish today is just have one line item on the fee schedule.
All connection fees would be 60 and all reconnections or whatever would be 60.
So, council?
I'm okay with it going $60 till the end of the year, but I don't think that we should have our crews out there performing the service and the rest of the citizens losing money every single year for that service.
Understand. Okay, we probably should do by motion because we are setting it permanently, so is that a motion?
Sure.
60, do I have a second?
Second.
Greg, did you say?
Yes, second.
We have a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you very much. Moving on to 6C, the 2024 budget presentation. You have the handout.
So the budget's going to be fluid between now and December. Today just wanted to provide some additional information on some revenues and expenditures across city departments and all of the different city funds as well. Please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And again, open dialogue, and the budget will be changing as the next couple of months unfold here. So I'll be asking some questions, I'll be asking for some input, and then also just sharing a lot of information throughout. So if we're looking at some expenditure notes for the 2024 preliminary budget, there is an election budget that had to be added in for 2024. The expenditures include an operating transfer from the general fund to the DMV of $20,000. That has happened annually consistently now for a while. This year we might be having to increase that, so what we're doing right now is working with our auditors. The motor vehicle department is running at a deficit larger than the $20,000, so we need to make sure that, we're kind of eating away fund balance in the motor vehicle fund, and so at some point, we need to make sure that, once that fund balance that we've been eating away at, is no longer, then we have to make some additional adjustments and or transfer more money from the general fund to support the motor vehicle department. The expenditures include a 3% wage increase for city employees, that's across the board. The health insurance budget, premiums increased about 9% this year. And it includes an electric utility rate savings of $180,000. And so what we've tried to do within the budget is kind of essentially set those monies aside as we've established that partnership with Water and Light to be able to utilize those monies for development, and whatever that looks like from a council perspective, that will be your decision, but we have earmarked those monies as per that ongoing relationship with Water and Light. Some revenue notes. Sales tax revenue budgeted in 2024 is $225,000. That's been very consistent over the past couple years. Local government aid did increase $131,000. It went up to $1,120,380 for 2024. That's excellent, very helpful. The water and light transfer is budgeted at $250,000. That is for our standard utility transfer between the two as they are collecting our monies and transferring them back to the city. That's what that is. Those are our rates that they're collecting for us. And campground revenue, the budget increased $30,000 to $180,000 for 2024. We'll be sharing some more in-depth information on campground revenues. They're very strong. They look great. This is very, very helpful to the city. We have budgeted for an additional $30,000 for 2024. The next couple pages just kind of goes over an expense overview per department. I will highlight a couple of different sections here and provide a little more insight on what the difference would be from 2023 to 2024. If you have any questions, please feel free to interject. These next departments that I'm listing are all within the general fund. So general government increased to $318,750. The difference is about $26,950 over the year previous. Most of that increase is in part to an increase in our workers' comp insurance premium. The council budget has increased about $1,200 to $43,375 in 2024. The city administration budget increased to $336,800. What that is comprised of is the health insurance premiums primarily, the 9% increase. In addition, we are being notified by VC3 that we have to replace workstations. We asked them to prioritize the top 5 workstations as far as age and usage and vulnerability and non-compliance. And so with that, one of the workstations that does need to be replaced is within the city administration budget. So you'll see later on in additional slides, that's actually for our finance director's workstation. So that money is included in there. It's considered an operating expense, not a capital item as far as budget is concerned. Again, there's the $2,500 election budget for 2024. The community center budget decreased to $42,465. What was removed from there is there's been some building and repair line items that are kind of hopes and dreams. We would be getting paint and carpet and some remodeling stuff within the community center. Those monies were removed based on some other budgetary prioritizations that you'll see coming up later on. Love to be able to do that. This was the first thing to go. The police department, you'll see that the budget has increased $240,665 over 2023. That line item is now at $922,865. That's a significant jump over 2023. What I've included in the packet later on is a line-by-line itemization of that budget. I showed 2023 and 2024, so it's very easy to read, and I'm open to having any discussion or dialogue about that. The increases are primarily for health insurance costs. The building inspector budget within the general fund remained the same at $26,500. The public works budget increased to $309,050 in 2024. What is within that public works budget is, again, one of our top 5 workstations. It actually runs some computers and software pertinent to our city infrastructure, which is very important. There's a replacement for that workstation within that increase. Health insurance premiums, it includes 1 ped ramp a year, which we've been doing now consistently for 2 years. That will be in there for 2024 as well. And an increase in the blacktop budget. Our blacktop budget was not sufficient for what we need for potholes within the city or the size of our community. So we did increase the blacktop budget about $15,000. So all of those items comprise the difference between 2023 and 2024 within the Public Works Department. You'll notice a couple of trends here. The city does not have very many full-time employees, but the departments where there are full-time employees, you'll really see that 9% health insurance hit, and the workstation replacements are a big deal. VC3 actually gave us a list of about 20 workstations that we needed to replace, and we said, no, 5. Give us 5, we're gonna try and plug them into the budget. That's a spendy line item. So you'll see when those departments are affected by either health insurance or the workstation replacements, you'll kind of see extra high jumps from year previous. The recycling department within the general fund increased $275 to $17,000 for 2024. One thing that we did in 2023 is we started to budget for wages in order to operate the recycling shed at its new location after the relocation, and to be able to kind of facilitate monitoring of the brush pile, which has come forward to council many times, and we've tried to come up with a solution then for what that looks like. So we'll have some discussions about that in the coming months for 2024. The monies were included in 2023 and then kind of reassessed, and the 275 is just a little bit of extra wage in there to be able to facilitate a recycling shed and brush pile monitoring like we've discussed and will discuss moving forward. So the remainder of the general fund departments here, we have the depot. That budget increased to about $10,000 in 2024, an increase of $1,000. This was primarily we're seeing the repairs and maintenance side of things consistently be around a higher dollar threshold, and so we needed to increase the budget in order to accommodate for those on an annual basis. Parks and Rec Department, this is the city campground. You'll see an increase. I see my increase did not hold within that department. What that increase is up to $112,600 for 2024. What we've budgeted for within the campground for 2024 is a floating dock slip. The floating dock slip has the ability to generate revenue. So what you're not seeing in this expenditure report is the flip side of that equation, to where the proposition of a floating dock slip would then allow for revenues to come in to pay for it. So it looks like a significant increase. Essentially, the mindset would, that service provided to our campers would then turn around it and pay for itself and potentially generate a little bit of revenue in the campground. That's the difference you'll see in the budgets between 23 and 2024 for the campground.
How many slips, how many pontoons, or what are we fitting in?
So we've been looking at about 10. We want to start there. We're currently gathering information, so we're hoping by the next city council meeting that we'll have that. With that, of the floating dock slip proposition, we'll also have a recommendation for a fee schedule as well. So we're kind of in the process of doing the homework. We've decided on that 10 slip startup to kind of see where it's at, see how much room it takes up, see what the supply and demand is. We've heard a ton of feedback from campers that they want this. Even non-campers have come forward and say, hey, we'd like an opportunity to be able to dock our boat for the summer season here. What are our options? So we will have that information to present. The gardens budget increased about $800 to $23,300. Again, you're looking at that 3% wage increase. The library budget increased $4,500 to $87,050. Within that, there's a MakerBot sketch equipment that has been requested for the library. It's not considered capital, and so that would not be a consistent increase of $4,500. That would be for the annual basis. And again, as we rework the budget, some of these items might change, but that has been requested and included in the budget at this time. The cemetery, you'll see a decrease in $5,000 to $14,350. What this is for the first time ever in 2023, we budgeted for wages to mow and caretake at the cemetery. We really wanted to have a good idea of what is it going to take what does it take to what cost is it to operate all these different departments? So we started itemizing gas, mowing, employee time, all these different things within each individual department so that we could further analyze and assess them. We over budgeted in 2023 for wages within the cemetery, and so that money is coming back out. We feel that we can get it accomplished for a lesser dollar amount. So this is our second round at cost of operating in the cemetery. It's a positive. Cable TV, you'll see a slight increase for the 3% wage increase. That went up to $42,150. The Riverside Arena, you'll see a slight increase of $5,300 up to $92,450. Consistently, our repairs and maintenance line items within the Riverside Arena budget have not been adequate. So as the building ages, as all the equipment ages, we need to be able to accurately assess what it's costing us to function in the arena. The next page, you'll see that line item by line item increase. I know that the increase in the police department is significant, and so I wanted to provide a complete snapshot of all of the expense codes for the police department. You can see where there were additions and subtractions, and you can see 2023 as well. So you can have a really, I guess, up close and personal look at what our police department budget is. You'll also see that there is a line item, 2 of the top 5 workstation replacement identified computers were within the PD, and so the jump to $6,500, or the jump of $6,500 up to $11,000 for computers and softwares within the police department. You'll again see that workstation replacement, 2 of those are within that department. So moving on, these are the 2024 general fund capital projects listed or currently within the budget. They were not in the figures that were previously presented to you per department. So capital is always separated. And so we have an arena bleacher heater at Riverside Arena that does need to be replaced. We've tried to limp it along as long as we possibly can. There's a leak, there's some stuff going on there that has to get done. It's considered capital based on the sizable amount of the replacement. Again, you'll see the $180,000 of the electric utility savings. We are earmarking that out, and so the attempt would be to balance the budget without touching that based on our continued partnership with Water and Light. Public Works, you'll see $50,000 for gravel pit savings. So we know we want to have the gravel pit up and functioning prior to our next road project. So we have a couple of years here. With a gravel pit, there is an initial investment that's pretty significant in order to get things moving before you can start heading in the opposite direction. The mindset here would be to start to build for about 3 years in order to be able to cover the cost of getting the gravel pit going. So if we're looking at having it done by the time we do our next road project, it's important that we're honey-holing money in order to be able to do that. Again, if we're looking at cuts, we will, some of these items might not make the final cut, but this is what's on here at this time. Internally, we've done a lot of assessment regarding trading in and buying on state bid for some of our work utility vehicles. You'll see $20,000 for a Public Works pickup truck trade. And then we are in need of a dump truck, so a used dump truck would be about $60,000. Community Center, you'll see a rooftop unit and the install price. Again, we've kind of budgeted for these one every year. That is the cost of now a unit and install. In addition, our copier is dying, so we have that on there at $5,000 within the community center. That copier is used by the library, city administration, DMV, and anybody else who rents office space and utilizes the community center and city offices as well. So at the bottom, you'll see the workstation replacements relevant to the general fund. One of them is not included on here. That would be, there's 2 in the PD, so it would be a total of $12,000. That was a last minute add today as we are continuing to comb through the budget.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So the copy machine, we don't lease, we own?
Correct.
We might have other options as well. We know it's on its last leg, so we're looking into all of that at this time. We're just trying to make sure that we have something set aside if it takes. The next page is going to be a general fund budget summary. So everything as stated right now, the revenues include the $225, $100,000 from sales tax, the natural gas franchise fee, gambling contributions, LGA, campground, fees, water and light, all of that's included in that revenue mark. In addition, the monies budgeted for the levy, the 3% initial levy was included for this budget. So why I'm saying that is, depending upon what happens with the levy, we'll be also having to address potentially a larger deficit that we're looking to work on over the next 3 months here. So revenues are coming in at $2,862,556. Operating expenses are coming in at $2,626,265. The capital expenditures are coming in at $362,000, and total expenses of $2,985,265. We're looking at a deficit currently. So what we're tasked with over the next couple months from an administrative perspective is cutting and or being extremely resourceful. And so looking to see what council would like to prioritize, and if there's direction on particular areas where we need to address, we will absolutely take those into account as we're working through solving our math problem for the next couple of months. Moving on to the water fund. A couple notables: in 5 years, the water fund debt service obligation will be over $241,000 per year. We like to look at a 5-year snapshot when we're looking at rates. The simple math of that means in order to be able to accommodate our debt service obligation, we have to be able to withstand the $241,000 per year debt payment within our water fund. The easy math on that is $48,200 per year increase in order to maintain the fund balance. There are no capital recommendations for 2024 in the water fund. In addition, if we're looking at that $48,200 mark that we need to meet year over year, the recommendation would be a rate increase of $3.50 to the minimum user of up to 2,000 gallons, $6.01 to 4,000 users using 4,000 gallons, and an increase of $8.67 for users that are utilizing 6,000 gallons. You can see that the current rate versus the recommended 2024 rate, again, for 2,000 gallons would be $29.24, for 4,000 gallons would be $48.96, and for 6,000 gallons would be $70.62. Water revenues currently are budgeted at $423,398. The expenditures are budgeted at $313,507, with a net income of $109,890. And again, we're building that net income to be able to withstand the $241,000 debt service obligation payment as it's approaching here in the next 5 years. Questions? Moving on to the sewer fund. The debt service obligation within the sewer fund in 2024, this upcoming year, is $383,000. That is $43,000 over last year. What happened was there was 4 active lines of credit, or lines of debt, in the sewer fund, and as one, how the payments were restructured, as one line fell off, the 4th line came on as far as active for payments is concerned. So we got to the end of one of the lines of credit or debt. Now it's the 4th line is being kind of added back into the mix, and because the way the payments were structured with the deferred payment, it is a little bit of a higher payment as that debt comes up into play. So you're looking at an increase of $43,000 alone, just based on what our debt obligation will be in 2024. At the end of 2022, the sewer fund balance was approximately $1.2 million. We did budget for a net loss of $163,000 in 2023. At the end of 2023, this will result in the city hitting that $1 million threshold recommended by the MPCA. We have had discussions regarding the importance of keeping that fund balance at $1 million in order to be able to support sewer infrastructure repairs, maintenance, operation, things of that nature. The recommended amount by the MPCA is that $1 million threshold. We know that we're approaching that at the end of 2023. In 2024, we need to make sure that we compensate for our deficit and be able to make sure that we can meet our debt service obligation of the $383,000. The recommendation would be a rate increase for the minimum users of $13.11. In 2024, that rate would be $38.34 monthly for the minimum user of up to 2,000 gallons. For a user utilizing 4,000 gallons, the increase would be $19.29. for a monthly rate of $56.42. And then for a user utilizing 6,000 gallons, the increase would be $25.27 to a total of $73.90 per month. The sewer revenues for 2024 are currently budgeted at $778,207. That is with the rate increase recommendation. The operating expenses are budgeted at $776,248. This would give us a net income of $1,958. On the right-hand side, you'll see the capital line items relevant to the sewer fund. You'll see the lining project of $100,000 that we've been doing annually. There's a VFD at the main lift station that needs to be replaced for $15,000. And then Superintendent Etner, a few months ago, I talked about the bug program at the ponds. That's essential for our organic
Biochemistry.
Biochemistry, thank you.
Not to
That's-
mention it's gonna add more capacity to ponds.
And it does contribute to our pond capacity by eating the bottom layers,
The sludge.
the sludge bugs, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the total capital budget expenses for the sewer fund would be $135,000 for 2024 in the preliminary budget.
Question, if we could have for the next council meeting, because I know in November, we have to make these tough decisions.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do in the next couple months. And so we'll definitely have to engage. We've talked internally about having a working meeting. The math problem can be solved. Looking for a little bit of direction and prioritization. And so it'll be a collaborative effort here.
If I can just say something, we talked about the sewer fund, that's quite an increase, especially $135,000 with the projects. I'd like to see, since we did pay off the liquor store, that we utilize around $25,000 from the liquor store fund to help offset some of these costs. Because if you're looking at that sewer rate increase, it'd be 52%.
But I'd like to see also, which I agree, we need to look at all those funds. I would like to see a threshold at 900,000, 800,000, and 700,000, what that would look like here.
Okay.
I know that they recommended $1 million is the threshold to have as your security blanket, but we should look at 900,000, 800,000, 700,000, how that affects us. We can get to a lower level, which wouldn't hit the residents so hard, but yet we would have a large, if you're talking 900, 800,000, you still have a large amount of money for a backup. And that doesn't mean we can't build on that as time goes on.
But we did, one more thing, we did do a 12% increase in 2023 and we lost ground. So this situation is not getting any better, and I think we kicked the can down the road as long as we can kick it.
No,
We
I
do
understand and I agree with you, but I think,
Having the facts are great,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
900,000 may make, $100,000 may make a big difference. Having that as a security blanket, that's still a lot. And to me, if we're going to such a large project where we're looking at all that money, we're gonna be looking at some kind of financing where we're either borrowing or we're bonding or we're doing something, because we would not, to me, throw $1 million or 900,000 right up the door right away on any one project. We would look at financing options.
So,
This is good to have for emergency. Say that again?
300 plus the board.
so I just just want to remind council that Superintendent Edner did share with us, we're in need of main lift station pumps.
Right,
And I know that's a shared cost. Those pumps alone, just for the pumps, are $300,000.
correct.
We're currently utilizing borrowed pumps.
No, that's a different station.
Okay. The infrastructure for the sewer fund is so costly, and it's tough, which is why that recommendation is there. Not that we can't, there's no magic bar at the $1 million that we can't go below. There's just the need to be able to protect the operation of the infrastructure, and with how costly the equipment is, you know, it's a tough decision for council. As Councilor Jutman mentioned, we did do a 12% rate increase last year, and with inflation, we lost ground. So we have been able to maintain extremely low rates in the community, and that was a prioritization and a goal, and very, very important. We're at an impasse where the fund is now reaching a threshold that needs to be monitored and maintained as well.
Inflation might continue to still be a problem too going forward.
Correct.
And the sanitary district charges $60 a month for their users, and our users right now are paying 25, what, 65 for a small user? Correct.
It's based on water usage now, so I'm guessing all that would have to be totally changed. The type, depending on how we go here, on how you charge. Sewer is based on water use, correct?
Yep. Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So we still could do it, but it's just a different dollar amount without changing that fee schedule, how it's tabulated.
I don't know if I'm following you, Ted. I'm sorry.
Mayor Shah, are you contemplating a fixed rate currently? Is that what you're discussing?
Maybe we need to do something different than what we're doing.
So there's an option for that, yep.
And we should be very creative because we're talking about a huge rate. And maybe there's a smarter way to do this. I'm sure we've been using this one method for many years, decades probably. And maybe we need to look at a different option. Just trying to give the council as much flexibility as you can to come to a decision on this, because it will be a tough one.
Absolutely.
So, just wanted to throw that out. Next month, we probably will have to do the finalized. Yes, sir.
So you're saying that, okay, it's one thing, you're charging one way charging for water, and you're thinking of charging another way for sewer, which is correct. 'Cause right now it costs so much to take care of the sewer, but and it costs differently for taking care of water, which is also true. So, which actually thinking about it, they're not necessarily tied together, because the fact is that all the water you take into your house does not necessarily go down the drain.
Just-
There's a good percentage of it on both houses.
Just said we need to look at all these options and see what we can come up with. Yes, sir.
So one thing to keep in mind, we don't have is a connection fee. So for example, an apartment building, right? They only have one sewer bill for the whole building. There may be 40 tenants or 40 apartments in that building, and a lot of cities do a connection fee where every single one of those tenants get a sewer bill. That's something to look at. It's an option. We looked at some of that math, pretty small numbers, but it's a start, absolutely. Absolutely.
Question?
Yes, sir.
We have these figures for households. You know, I wonder about small businesses too. Now, is the rate higher for businesses then?
Thank you for asking that, Walt. The rate does not change for commercial and or residential user. It's purely based on our table and schedule for flow. So the rate stays the same for commercial and residential users, and you're only billed on the flow.
The number of gallons that you use.
Yes, please.
Is this statement correct, that a majority of the households would be up to the 2,000 gallons?
Before I could answer that, I'd have to do some more digging to find out what percentages fall where. And I'm sure that that's fairly easy to report, I'm sure water and electric can go for us. To see the volume of people that would affect each one of these acres.
Yeah, and there's options that we're gonna talk about in November. I know that there's more of them. I think with a little more information, we'll be able to make a better decision on where we're gonna go. Now this, in this next year, are we gonna hit the 1 million threshold?
We most likely will be very close to it at the end of 2023 here. So in 2024, we're probably going to be in the downslide into that threshold.
And it'll depend on, well, thinking back to all the different experiences with different funds through the years. Setting that threshold, whether it's 500,000 or 1 million, or like the water and light has gone to 19 months. I believe that's what you're at as a reserve, right?
Last I
19-month
remember.
reserve. It's good to have reserves, but in my experience, if you're looking at something where you're getting to 900,000 expenditure, it's smart to look at borrowing the money and not take your whole reserve. I know 500,000 now is too small. We used to have that as the target, but that's too small nowadays. Inflation, change of cost, everything. So higher number is more appropriate. But when you get close to the threshold of it, a smart finance person would not spend your whole reserve. You would look at options.
Sure.
Maybe you borrow 500,000 and you spend 100,000 out of your reserve. You don't want to ever spend your reserve down like that, just empty it. That's not good, because the next month
You know,
you could have the next big problem.
Sure.
So we have some things to think about for between now and November.
keep in mind, your SCADA system, the computer program that runs your water and sewer, is $1 million. So if it fails tonight, it's $1 million.
And as we issue more debt, our debt service obligation continues to rise, which is why we have the type of
That's right.
payment that we do on an annual basis within the sewer fund is from previous borrowing. And so any additions to that just contributes the need to be able to have rates be adequate for operation and function and maintenance. And one thing that Superintendent Entner and I have discussed thoroughly is the end goal would be having the utility funds in a place where they can not only support repairs, operation, and maintenance, but also
Keep your fund balance.
have your reserves. But every time we do a road project, we could do them more frequently if each the water and sewer fund could help facilitate the project by covering the cost of the new infrastructure for each. So if you think about the total cost of the 4th Street project being $1.3 million, and you look at an itemization of what the sewer fund infrastructure, or the sewer infrastructure cost and the water infrastructure cost, if these funds could could help contribute to replacement of that infrastructure, and they were solid enough to be able to do that, you could then in turn do road projects more frequently. So the goal isn't just to be able to cover our debt obligation, it's to make the utility funds sustainable, but also so that they can contribute back to the supporting and operating and repair and upgrade of itself.
And there is a fine line that we get where we also can't increase everything to the point where we're hurting our own citizens, our own
Of course.
taxpayers.
Of course.
And that's a fine line that you people that are voted in or voted out on what you decide. Yes, sir?
So if you're not breaking even in that utility, who are you hurting? Because you're representing the taxpayers, and that utility is here to serve the taxpayers and ratepayers.
Well, you know that this utility, we got into this situation because of one incident.
I know the history.
And we're still suffering from it. That's when the state pulled out in a project and left us all the debt. And that was it. We're still suffering 10 years later. And we will, I think, until 2048. I think that's when the last payment for that project is done. So they put us in a terrible situation, and we're suffering from it, which makes this problem hard. And it does affect all the other big projects we want to do.
100%.
Yep.
Because we'd be cranking road projects out left and right. If
Right.
we had water, sewer, and a gravel pit to pay for three
Yeah.
quarters of it.
Yeah.
100%.
When the state came here, their representatives or whoever was all here like last month or so, was something like that brought up and told them, you know?
Of course it was. Okay. But you know what? They're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, well, just curious.
Yeah. They're not gonna do any special legislation when they're gonna, to give us anything special. That won't ever happen. So we have a big decision next month with a lot of options, so we gotta stay flexible and come up with the best scenario where hopefully we get a win-win. Somewhere between all this data and what data's coming, the stuff we asked, we'll come up with a decision. I know we will.
I recognize the information that's presented tonight is really tough, and from an administrative standpoint, it is our role to just present the facts and to gather as much data and information as we possibly can for council. And so that is where this information is coming from, is wanting you to have facts to make the best decisions you possibly can as council.
No, you guys did your job. Your job is to bring the data and facts to us. These are not your opinions, these are facts.
Correct.
And the facts come to the council to make the decision. So you guys are doing what you're paid to do. Now it's our job to take that data and come up with a solution. So with that, thank you very much.
What's that?
You have to suffer with it.
Like Ted said, I won't even get to reap the benefits of being out of debt from that last problem we had. I'll be retired by then.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I better be.
Any more discussion on the sewer fund summary, other than the council be ready to make a decision in November? We gotta have a finalized one. And I know we do the final thing in December, but you're gonna have to have that data to make that final for us to vote on the overall budget.
Would there be a benefit to having a working meeting? Is there a desire to share information, to have information presented in a different?
Hey, council?
I think it's always beneficial to be able to sit
Well,
down and
let's-
have a
let's set
longer
one then.
discussion on
Sure.
things and.
You want it at the end of this month or the end of November? Well, we better do it this month and not the end of. Who's got calendars out?
The 25th we're looking at, or Wednesday, or what are we looking at?
Sure.
Second and
What,
fourth
what
Wednesday?
works for you guys on time? Walt, in the evening is not good for you.
No, I'm open for any day except for evening times. If it's Tuesday through Thursday, I can make evenings.
Can you do earlier?
Yeah, Wednesdays always work. For some odd reason, Wednesdays are
Right.
open.
We could do it 3, we could do it earlier let's say 3 in the afternoon. We could start. I would think in a couple hours, how much time do you need to be over there to get
If
ready?
it's on Wednesday, we won't be having a movie on Wednesday because we're back to our winter hours.
Okay,
So Wednesday, the 25th at 3 p.m.
Oh, what was that, which day?
Wednesday, the 25th, October 25th at 3 p.m. I'll make sure that gets posted and I can send out an email as well as a reminder.
all right.
Sounds good.
I'll make sure that some of those requests that were made as far as the additional figures for gallons and/or contributions from the liquor fund, and that data is available for those discussions as well.
Phil, can you look at breaking the system we're using right now for how we figure out?
Yep, I have a note for it already.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
I'll make some phone calls.
Because
on
there
it
may be some real good options that will hit everything we need. I don't know. Great, thank you.
All right, looking at the liquor fund summary now. So at the end of 2022, the liquor unrestricted fund balance was approximately $115,134. The city auditors recommend 5 months of expenditure reserve, so approximately $1 million to have in your liquor fund before you start getting your fingers in it. We know that in 2023 that balance is already growing, so there is a recommendation in 2024 to utilize the newly established fund balance in the liquor fund to support 2 capital items for the liquor fund. Those items would be a control panel, an HVAC control panel that's needed, and a new point of sale system for around $40,000. With that in mind, liquor revenues in 2024 are budgeted at $1,827,000. Expenditures in 2024 are budgeted at $1,734,687. If you take that $40,000 for the capital items into play, you're looking at a net income budgeted for of approximately $52,313. Again, there's $40,000 worth of capital included in those expenditures, and we've been discussing internally what we want to be a percentage increase for revenues and what our goal will be. And so that's yet to come within our budget process. These are just what the expenditures are and revenues are without some type of goal for revenue generation or increase year over year. And so that's something that we're working on as well. Lastly, we have the motor vehicle fund, which is the last of our enterprise funds. In 2024, the revenues include a $20,000 operating transfer from the general fund. Again, we're working with our auditors to determine what that looks like long term. So the past couple of years, there's been a $20,000 transfer from the general fund to support the motor vehicle department. We've kind of been eating out of fund balance there as well, so we want to make sure that we're not going to hit zero, and what is the actual contribution from the general fund need to be to support the department. The motor vehicle revenues for 2024 are budgeted at $2,534,900. The motor vehicle expenditures are budgeted at $2,587,645. We're looking at a net loss of $52,745. The expenditures include a workstation replacement for one of the motor vehicle departments as one of the 5 identified workstation replacements that need to occur in 2024.
I wonder if it's possible to contact the state to see if they will cover the expense of that workstation. Because out of the $2,534,900, which the state makes, which puts, it still puts us in a net, a loss of almost a 53,000 to keep it open for the community. The state's making all that money. I can't see why they can't. I think that tempts you to me to see if they can pay for the workstation. At minimum, geez, that's terrible. Yes, Chris?
Didn't we just redo all these workstations up there?
The computer, it's the computers and
So
software.
we redid the office itself. The workstations remain, the computers themselves were on the same schedule as the rest of the city computers. So there's one for one particular employee that is very old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurt to see if we can make a call. Can you support a workstation for us?
I will.
And if they say no, what have we lost? Well, we have lost. We just put out another 3,000. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that was impressive.
Actually, it was a good job with putting that together. Thank you.
If it helps, I didn't sleep last night.
The more accurate data we have, the better job we can do with this budget, and you too in the end.
I have full faith that, we'll come up with good solutions and that the math problems will get solved. It's just a lot of hard work, some tough decisions. We'll get creative as we possibly can, and we'll keep problem solving like we have been. So it's working. It's just not working as fast as we'd like it
Absolutely. Thank you. Good job. Moving on to reports and correspondence, 7A, letter to administration, September 14, 2023. Now, this letter is unsigned. It just says tax-paying residents. So we have no information who it is. It doesn't, because they put this on, it doesn't mean they are residents. I have no idea. But I can tell, and I'm not going to read it because of they want it read, then put your name on it, as far as I'm concerned. And that is to respect everybody else in the community.
I was rather confused at what the.
Right. But I did look at, it's concerning Keith and Lana Newman, where their businesses are, where their greenhouse is, the building they own, and also where their sheds are located. And we looked at who owns that property, and Keith and Lana own that property from 3rd Street, which is between their greenhouse and the restaurant, all the way to the parking lot of the trailhead behind Old Arts. So that land belongs to them, and it is zoned correctly. The type of businesses they have fit that zoning. So I don't see any other, they don't have a problem with what they're doing. So this is not, it's too cryptic to know what are they asking. Only thing I could get out of it is they're questioning their buildings and the businesses on their land that they're using, and it's all appropriate from what we can see on their zoning who owns the property and the use. So that's the only answer I can give, unless administrator has anything else.
No, we did, based on the letter, follow through with the request to publish and/or verify the zoning and the use was accurate for the type of zoning of the property. So we did do our due diligence in the background and we did publish the letter as requested.
So you have it in your packet, it's in the city council packet,
Correct.
and that's where we're at. If the individuals have more questions, they'll have to come forward and tell us who they are and where they are, their address, and we'll read it. Anything else on that in the city council meeting? Questions? No? Okay. 7B, Minnesota Rural Water Association Appreciation Letter.
Yes, so Joe Jansen made contact with the city with the following letter. To whom it may concern, I truly want to send my thanks to the City of Moose Lake and Public Works Superintendent Bill Etner. Minnesota Rural Water recently hosted a wastewater training at the Siouxline Event Center for water and wastewater operations to receive continuing education hours. For the area, this is a huge need as trainings are hard to come by locally, but this being a need, not only did Phil and Moose Lake host a much needed local location to allow 25 operators to travel minimally to get much needed continuing education hours, but allowed us a free location to do so. This was not only huge for Minnesota Rural Water, a nonprofit, to train for free, but gave us a much needed spot to train as locations are hard to find. I cannot say thank you enough for how wonderful the entire city staff has been to work with, but how selflessness the staff was to want to help out the local communities to receive free training with minimal travel. Could not do it without you all. Thank you. Joe Jansen, wastewater technical advisor with Minnesota Rural Water Association.
Great job, Phil.
Good job.
And Steve up the event center.
And Steve, I think Steve already, so we're good.
Thank you very much. Good job. Moving on to 7C, Truth and Taxation Meeting Notice, which will be December 13th, 2023. Do we have a time?
6.
Has to be
Does it have to
6
be after 6? Has to be after 6 PM, and we do have to have a quorum. So, in your calendar, December 13th.
Correct, and we will have our regular city council meeting starting at 4. If there's need to have some type of recess in between, depending upon when that initial meeting wraps up, we'll have the Truth and Taxation meeting start at 6 PM.
Maybe some popcorn from like a movie theater or something.
Yeah.
Buttercup.
Why are we just thinking about this now? Like, we meet every month.
Click my teeth.
Hey, we can put orders in any time, guys.
Just across the street.
Right. Bruce Casson used to do it all the time.
Yeah,
It was Dairy Queen.
yeah.
All right, moving on to committee, number 8, committee and board meeting minutes. 8A, we have the Park and Recreation Board meeting minutes, October 2nd, 2023. And B, we have the Moose Lake Area Fire Protection District meeting minutes for September 12th, 2023. Any discussion or questions on the two meetings?
Looks like there's a 5% levy for the fire department.
Possible, that's what they said of that.
Okay.
You know.
And they'll make that same thing like we do by December.
Yeah, I'm hoping there is none, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Phil, anything on the parks? Nothing new?
No, I don't have anything currently on.
Did the rest of the
No.
committee get their items in? So the only items are the ones I turned in, so there you go, you can
You get a name.
run with it.
Oh, Walt turned some in too. That's
Walt
right,
turned
Walt
his in
turned
as
some
well.
in too.
What's that?
The park,
Walkthrough?
walk through all the items for the,
Yeah, I got it.
Walt did that, yep.
Yep, I got him the list.
No. You're good. You two too. You're good.
number 9, announcements. Regular Moose Lake City Council meeting Wednesday, November 8th, 4 PM, right here. Moose Lake Economic Development Authority, Wednesday, October 18th, 12 PM, City Conference Room. Moose Lake Water and Light Commission, regular meeting Tuesday, October 17th, 1 PM, Water and Light Office. Moose Lake Housing Redevelopment Authority Board, Monday, November 13th, 11 AM, Hillside Manor Office. Moose Lake Area Fire District, November 14th, 6:30 PM, Emergency Response Center. Moose Lake Park and Recreation Board meeting, November 6th, 5 PM, right here. Any last things from anyone? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.